I'm sitting in a 24-hour diner right now, staring at a cold cup of coffee. The fluorescent lights are buzzing, and the waitress keeps looking at me with pity. My name is Andrew. I am 67 years old, and until last Tuesday, I owned a beautiful brick house on Willow Creek. Now all I own is what fits in the trunk of my old sedan. I'm posting this because I need the world to know how easily your own blood can turn into a stranger. I want to tell you about my son Brandon. I spent 30 years working at the local manufacturing plant. It was hard work, loud and exhausting, but it paid for the life I wanted. My wife, Sarah, and I bought our home in 1992. We put every extra penny into that house. We painted the shutters blue because she loved the ocean. We planted an oak tree in the front yard when Brandon was born. After Sarah passed away 4 years ago, that house was my only connection to her. I could still see her in the way the sunlight hit the kitchen table. Brandon was always the star of the family. He was smart, fast-talking, and moved to the city to become a high-end consultant. He drove a car that cost more than my first house. I was so proud of him. When he visited, he would tell me about his global investments and asset management. I didn't understand most of it, but I figured my son was a success. About 2 months ago, I woke up and the entire world was spinning. I couldn't even stand up without falling over. The doctor called it a severe case of vertigo caused by an inner ear infection. For weeks, I felt like I was on a boat in a storm. My vision was blurry and I was constantly nauseous. Brandon moved back home to help. He was so kind at first. He would bring me water, dim the lights, and keep the house quiet. "Rest, Dad," he'd say. "You've worked hard enough. Let me take care of the house and the bills." One evening, while the room was still tilting and my head was thumping, Brandon came into my bedroom. He had a blue folder in his hand. He sat on the edge of my bed and looked very serious. "Dad," he said, keeping his voice low, "the city is auditing the property taxes in this neighborhood. Since you're sick, I've been talking to the lawyers. I found a way to get you a massive senior discount, but I need you to sign these authorization forms tonight. If we miss the deadline, your taxes will double." I tried to sit up, but the dizziness hit me like a wave. I couldn't even focus on the words on the page. "Can I read them tomorrow?" I asked. Brandon sighed, looking frustrated. "Dad, the courier is coming in 20 minutes. It's just standard tax stuff. Don't you trust me? I'm trying to save your retirement money." I felt guilty for even questioning him. This was my son. I took the pen. My hand was shaking so much I could barely grip it. I signed 3 different pages where he pointed his finger. I didn't see the title of the document. I didn't see the word transfer. I just wanted the room to stop spinning. "Thanks, Dad. Get some sleep," he said. He closed the folder quickly and walked out. He didn't check on me for the rest of the night. I fell asleep thinking I was lucky to have such a smart son looking out for me. I didn't know that with those 3 shaky signatures, I had just signed away every brick, every memory, and every square inch of the only home I ever loved. The first sign that something was wrong wasn't a loud noise. It was the silence. As the vertigo slowly started to fade, the world stopped spinning, but my life began to feel very cold. Brandon, who had been so helpful and caring just a week ago, suddenly became a ghost. He stopped bringing me soup. He stopped asking how I felt. In fact, he barely looked at me at all. He spent all his time on his phone in the kitchen, speaking in a low, urgent voice. I caught fragments of his conversations: market value, quick closing, and unencumbered title. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured he was just busy with his big city job. But then, on Friday morning, something happened that made my blood run cold. I was sitting on the porch, enjoying the first day I didn't feel dizzy, when a silver SUV pulled into my driveway. A woman in a sharp business suit got out. She had a professional smile and a clipboard. She didn't look like a friend of Brandon's. She looked like she was on a mission. "Can I help you?" I asked, standing up slowly. She looked at her notes and then at me. "Oh, hello. You must be the tenant? I'm here for the professional photography and the structural inspection." Mr. Miller said the house would be empty by the end of the month. My heart skipped a beat. Tenant? No, I'm Andrew Miller. I own this house. And who is Mr. Miller? She looked confused. Brandon Miller. The owner. He listed this property for sale 3 days ago. We already have 4 cash offers. It's a hot market. I felt like the vertigo was coming back, but this time, it wasn't an infection. It was pure raw fear. I walked back into the house, my legs feeling like lead. Brandon was in the kitchen, drinking espresso and typing on his laptop. He didn't even look up when I slammed the front door. Brandon, I said, my voice shaking. There is a woman outside saying she's here to take pictures of my house. She says you listed it for sale. What is going on? Brandon finally looked up. His eyes weren't the eyes of the sun I raised. They were hard like 2 pieces of flint. There was no guilt in them. No apology. Just a cold, calculated stare. Dad, sit down, he said. His voice was flat like he was reading a grocery list. We talked about this. The house is too big for you. The maintenance is too expensive. I'm moving you into a nice senior living facility closer to the city. It has a gym and a cafeteria. You'll love it. We never talked about selling the house. I shouted. And how can you sell it? My name is on the deed. Brandon leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. A small, cruel smirk touched his lips. Actually, Dad, your name isn't on anything anymore. Remember those papers you signed last week? The ones for the tax discounts. The room went silent. I remembered the blue folder. I remembered the blurry words. I remembered my own shaky signature on the bottom line. You lied to me, I whispered. You used my sickness to steal my home. I didn't steal it, Brandon snapped, his voice turning sharp. I secured my inheritance early. I'm a businessman, Dad. I can't let hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity just sit here while you grow old in a house you can't even clean. The papers are legal. The house is mine. And I've already accepted an offer. I looked at him, searching for even a spark of the little boy who used to hide behind my legs when he was scared. But that boy was gone. In his place was a predator. I stood there in the kitchen, the room I had painted with my own hands, and realized I didn't recognize the man standing in front of me. This wasn't the son I had loved. This was a stranger wearing my son's face. I wanted to scream, to hit something, but the vertigo was still humming in the back of my head. I felt weak. You have 30 days, Dad, Brandon said, closing his laptop. He didn't even look at me. The new owners want to move in by the 1st of next month. I've already booked a room for you at the Willows. It's a nice place. You'll have a roommate, but there's a big TV in the common room. A roommate? I whispered. I have a 3-bedroom house, Brandon. I have a garden. I have memories of your mother here. How could you do this? Memories don't pay the bills, Dad, he snapped. He stood up, and for a second I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, not guilt but stress. He looked tired. His expensive suit looked a little wrinkled. I'm in a hole, okay? My investments in the city went bad. I owe people a lot of money. This house is my only way out. You should be happy you can help your son. I was speechless. He wasn't just stealing my house to be rich. He was stealing it to pay for his own failures. He had gambled his life away and decided to use mine as his safety net. I spent the next 2 days like a ghost in my own home. I walked from room to room, touching the walls. I looked at the height marks on the kitchen door frame. I looked at the dent in the floor where Brandon had dropped a heavy toy truck when he was 5. Every corner of this house had a story, and Brandon was selling those stories to the highest bidder. I tried calling an attorney. I sat in my car so Brandon wouldn't hear me. Is there anything I can do? I asked the lawyer. I was sick. I didn't know what I was signing. The lawyer's voice was professional but cold. Mr. Miller, you signed a legal deed in front of a notary. Your son brought a mobile notary to the house that night. They have your signature, and the notary confirmed you were of sound mind. Unless you can prove he drugged you or forced your hand, the law sees this as a voluntary gift. It's almost impossible to undo. I hung up the phone and cried. I cried for my wife, Sarah. I was glad she wasn't here to see what our son had become. That night I saw Brandon through the window. He was in the backyard, standing near the old oak tree we had planted when he was born. He was holding a tape measure. He was measuring the yard for the real estate photos. He looked so cold, so clinical. He was calculating the value of the tree I had watered for 30 years. I went to my old desk in the basement. I started looking through old boxes looking for, I don't even know what, maybe a spark of hope. I found an old envelope tucked inside a dusty book. It was a letter Sarah had written to me right before she passed away. She knew Brandon was ambitious. She knew he was fast and sometimes greedy. In the letter she wrote, "Andrew, if our son ever loses his way, remind him of who we are. Remind him that we don't build houses, we build lives." I realized then that I couldn't just sit and wait for the movers to arrive. I couldn't let him destroy everything Sarah and I had built. I didn't have the law on my side, but I had the truth. And I knew something about Brandon that he had forgotten. He cared about his image more than anything in the world. I looked at the blue folder sitting on the kitchen counter. I knew what I had to do. I didn't call the police. I didn't call the lawyers again. I knew that in a courtroom a signature is a signature. Instead, I decided to fight Brandon using the only thing he actually loved, his reputation. The next day was the grand open house. Brandon had hired a catering company to serve expensive wine and appetizers. He wanted to impress the wealthy buyers from the city. He looked sharp in a charcoal suit, greeting people at the door like he was a king. He had hidden all my old photos. He had replaced my wife's favorite rug. He had turned our home into a product. I waited until the house was full of people. Potential buyers, the real estate agent, and even a couple of Brandon's business partners. Then I walked into the center of the living room. I wasn't wearing a suit. I was wearing my old work jacket, the one with the Andrew patch on the chest. "Excuse me, everyone," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. The room went quiet. Brandon's face turned from a fake smile to a mask of pure terror. "Dad, not now," he whispered, rushing toward me. "Go to the basement. We'll talk later." "No, Brandon," I said, stepping back. I looked at the crowd. "I want to tell you all a story about this house. My wife and I built these walls. We planted that oak tree for our son. And last month, while I was so dizzy from vertigo that I couldn't see my own hands, my son told me I was signing tax papers. But I was actually signing away my life." The silence in the room was heavy. The real estate agent looked at the floor. The buyers looked at Brandon with disgust. "He's confused," Brandon shouted, his face turning a deep, angry red. "He's old. He has medical issues. Don't listen to him." I held up the blue folder. Inside wasn't just the deed. It was the letter from Sarah. "I'm not confused, Brandon. I'm just disappointed. You can have the house. The papers say it's yours. But I want everyone here to know that when you buy this home, you aren't just buying wood and brick. You're buying a betrayal." I didn't wait for him to respond. I walked out the front door, leaving the wine, the expensive appetizers, and my son behind. The house didn't sell that day. Or the next. The story spread through our small town like wildfire. No one wanted to buy the house of betrayal. Brandon's business partners dropped him. They said they couldn't trust a man who would do that to his own father. 2 weeks later, Brandon came to the motel where I was staying. He looked terrible. His expensive car was gone, replaced by a cheap rental. He didn't look like a star anymore. He looked like a broken man. He handed me a single envelope. It was the deed to the house, signed back into my name. "I can't pay my debts, Dad," he said, his voice cracking. "I lost everything. The office, the car, my friends. Everyone knows what I did." I looked at the paper. I had my home back. But as I looked at my son, I realized I had lost something much more expensive. "You didn't lose everything because of me, Brandon," I said softly. "You lost everything the moment you thought a house was worth more than a father. I moved back into the house on Willow Creek yesterday. It's quiet now, too quiet. The blue oak tree is still there, and Sarah's flowers are starting to bloom. I'm home, but the house feels different. I learned a hard lesson at 67 years old. A signature can give you a house, but only love can make it a home. And some signatures cost far more than the ink they are written with.